So welcome back. Hope you guys had a good break. At this point, if you've looked at the rubric, what you'll notice is the midterm is worth more than the final, right? And what that reflects is the fact that for the first part of the class, those first 7 weeks, we had a lot of information to cover. We're kind of laying laying the groundwork for then understanding kind of where we're doing our sales, right? So we covered a lot of information, and that's why the midterm kind of had a heavier weighting to me. Now in the second half of the semester, we kind of get to back off that now. We go, all right, now we can focus on sales. Understanding all those, all of the environment in which group sales happens in the hotel industry, right? We can focus on sales itself, and we can refer back to all that information we now have. So that's kind of where we're at. We're going to start now looking specifically at sales and sales techniques and going through a sales process, right, and understanding that process. So our class today, we're going to start off just by talking about personal selling. If you remember, there's 5 promotional tools for marketing, right? So advertising, direct marketing, public relations, but one of those being personal selling, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about personal selling, exactly what it is, but also why it's such an important part of that promotional mix. We're then going to move on to relationship marketing, because the personal selling you do in the hotel industry is definitely a relationship-based activity. So we're going to look at that idea of relationship marketing. And from there, we'll get into the sales process. Now, the sales process is like basically the step-by-step process where you go from having someone who is, you've never met before, you go and you deal with it, like identifying a customer, figuring out who they are, approaching them, presenting to them, right? And going through the whole sales process to the point where you actually close the sale with them. And then one more step where you actually then follow up with that customer. So I'm going to introduce you to that whole sales process, and then for the rest of today and then also next week's class, we're going to go through the steps of the sales process and talk about each step in a little more detail and give you some more understanding of that. So following from the sales process, we're going to go into the first kind of stage of the sales process, which is first of all prospecting, right? Going out and finding customers, and then qualifying, which is identifying good customers, right? So we're going to do that, and then we'll follow up with the rest of it the following week. So starting in on personal sales, right? Personal selling. So just to give it a definition, first of all, right? What it's about, right? So a personalized form of communication in which a seller presents the features and benefits of a product to a buyer for the purpose of making a sale. Pretty straightforward definition, right? But what's important in this is the second word there, personalized, right? Unlike all the other things like advertising where you just write a blanket statement and send it out, right? Or I can write an email and send it out to 1,000 people, right? It's the same message, right, to everybody. Personal selling is the most customizable message you can have. I mean, direct marketing, you can pick a certain type of buyer and craft a message that tends to work for them, but it's still one message to that group of buyers, right? In personal selling, you actually can look and identify a specific buyer, one individual buyer. And you can understand them, and you can understand their characteristics and their interests and their needs, and you can craft a message specifically to them. And then taking it a step further, because this is an interaction, an active interaction between two people, you can then engage with the person. You can read them, you can ask them questions, and while you're delivering the message, you can change it right there on the fly. Right? So it's not a perfectly scripted thing. The idea is you go in and you have a plan of what you're going to say, but you will adjust what you're saying based on their response, right? Making it very, very customizable. And that's what makes it so effective. It's why it's so good at doing those things, buyer readiness states, right? Creating liking, preference, conviction. You can build that kind of liking, that conviction, because you're making the message perfect for them. And that's what really sets it apart. Yes, question.
I'm assuming that salesmen in hotels, when they're trying to find clients, they usually do personal selling. When they're trying to
Yeah, well, a salesman is personal selling.
Yeah.
That's what they do. The advertising department does advertising, right?
Hotel sales mostly focuses on personal selling when they're trying to, when they're doing B2B.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's still dealing specifically with an individual or a small group of individuals for every business you interact with. You're dealing with kind of some person individually. So the advantages then, obviously, of personal selling, right, is this idea of kind of flexibility in message, right? And using that direct contact, that immediate feedback that you get from a customer, you can customize your message as you go and craft it specifically for that person. So yeah, I mean, we can really, use this to be great at sales. But it has its disadvantages as well. I mean, if you can do personal selling for everyone, it'd be great. Now, I'll show you a salesperson. I'll put you in the room with a salesperson, and you'll walk buying something because they're so good at delivering a message to that person, right? But you can't use a salesperson for every sale you do. And why is that? What are the disadvantages? Well, first of all, it's really expensive. All right, like I can write an email. I could take an hour and craft the perfect email and then send it to 10,000 people that fast, right? But for me then to go to those 10,000 people individually, one by one, that would take a long time, a lot of salary, a lot of payroll, a lot of resources, right, for me to do that. So there's just this really, high price to doing personal selling. And one of the things we're going to talk about is the importance of making sure that when you do go to talk to someone, you're talking to the right person because it's expensive. You don't want to waste your time here. And time's the other resource here, right? It's not just about how much it costs. It's about, well, how much time does your salesperson have? They can only go and talk to so many people in a day, right? So you can't just go out and reach this massive audience, right? You have to be selective. You have to pinpoint the audience you go after. So large audiences tend to be out. And then the other disadvantage, and this isn't from a salesperson perspective, this is more from a sales management perspective, like managing a sales team. And that is, because the message is so customizable, it's really hard sometimes for a sales manager to be assured that every customer is getting the same message. Right? Creating consistency of message when you have a bunch of different salespeople in a bunch of different places can be really tricky. Does anyone here work as a server at all? Worked as a server in a restaurant? Yeah. I mean, if you've ever served in a restaurant, hopefully you had a manager who was always kind of saying, hey, this is what we're doing, and I want you to say this, and they kind of give you some script a little bit to what you should be saying or talking about to customers. As a server, you're a salesperson, right? That's what a good server is. And that's the manager trying to create a consistent message from one server to the next, right? And that's a really hard thing. In restaurants, that's one of the challenges we have. Same thing, front desk of a hotel. A front desk agent in a hotel is a salesperson. They have a sales role to play there. And we'll talk about that as we go through kind of some of the things that salespeople do. But again, if there's an inconsistent message, this can cause some real issues for a business. My wife, I've mentioned once, is celiac, right? She can't have wheat. So we were at this restaurant, and she said to the server, well, I'd like to have the burger. I won't have the bun, but can I just have a burger with the toppings and with the salad? And the server said, oh, yes, that'll work fine. So she orders a burger, and she eats, and later on, she's not feeling great. She starts to feel like, she's eating some flour somewhere along the way. But in the course of a day, right, this can happen. It's really hard to pinpoint where it came from. And she said, no, I asked the server. There's nothing in the burger. That's fine. We're back at that restaurant about a month later. And she says to the server, oh, I'm celiac, but you know what? I'll have the burger without a bun. And that server said, oh, no, you can't have that. There's breadcrumbs in the burgers. Well, that was what had happened to her, right? But inconsistency in message, right? That was an important fact that one server had and the other server didn't, right? And that's the kind of thing it is with salespeople. I mean, if you're talking to a salesperson and they're saying, hey, this is the best deal we have, and then you're talking to another salesperson, they say, oh, no, we can do better than that. That's a problem too, right? So consistency in message is an important thing. From a sales management perspective, one of your big tasks is to make sure that all your salespeople have the right knowledge and training so that even though they're customizing the message, there is a level of consistency in what they're offering and what they're saying about the product. What are some of the objectives of personal selling? Well, I mean, personal selling, it definitely does some things particularly well. The number one objective is to increase sales volume. Now, in an operation, if your operations team is doing their job, when a salesperson brings in a customer, that customer stays and they keep coming back, right? So your sales team's job isn't necessarily to keep customers, it's to bring in new ones, right, which you then can keep. So every time they bring a new customer in, it adds to the overall sales volume. and sales volume then grows over time, right? They can also, though, have product-specific objectives. And this is a great thing for that salespeople can do. Again, going back to kind of managing a sales team, if you have a product or something specific, maybe a target market you want to go after, or a specific product you want to sell, that sales team is a really great resource for that. I mean, I don't know how many times I've looked and, I'll look at my wine inventory, and I got 2 cases of wine that have been sitting there for 6 months and no one's ordering it. And I just now want to get it out. A lot of times, if I have good servers, I just have to go out and say, hey, whoever sells the most of that wine gets a bottle. And I've seen a server go out and sell a case of wine in a night that sat there for months. Right? They'll go out using good sales techniques and pushing it, and just disappears. Servers can have an enormous influence on people, right? Or salespeople, they can have an enormous influence on people if they're good at what they do. And they can guide people towards specific products that you want to move. Maybe it's something that you want to get out of inventory, or maybe it's a brand new product that you're trying to introduce to people, right? They can be great for that. I used to play a game when I was younger. I worked on this line. It was a kind of cafeteria style service when I worked for the ski hills. And I used to play a little game. We had this dish, and it was either chicken, beef, or seafood. And the game we'd play is the person beside me would call one of them and say, chicken. And the next customer that came along, I'd have to sell them chicken, not the other two, right? And they'd call beef, and I'd have to make sure they ordered the beef, not the other two. And we just kind of sit there and see how well we could do it. Funny little game, right? There's a couple cooks playing around, but we kind of just enjoyed. And it was all about sales. It was about how we describe it. We never put anything down. You never say anything negative. Ooh, don't have the chicken, it's off. No, you never say anything negative. It was always positive, but it was just how you said it and the words you used that you could pretty much always guarantee what someone was going to order, right? So yeah, product-specific objectives, salespeople can really do this. And sometimes it's not specific products, it's even target markets, right? So if you're a hotel and you're full, all your weekdays are full with conference business, you could go to your sales teams and say, hey, you know what? Our weekdays are pretty full already. We want you to go out and get social, kind of large social groups, right? Go out and get the fraternal people who are going to come, on the weekends. Go get the education market that are going to come on the weekends, right? So I can pick and choose target markets and send my salespeople out to get them specifically to help fill in gaps, right? So product-specific objectives, not just the product itself, but the customers that would tend to buy those products. Expanding market share is another big one. And when you get down to it, expanding market share a lot of time really means stealing your competitors' customers, right? I mean, if this is, if there's 100 people in my marketplace and I get 20% of them, I get 20 of those 100 people, right? And you get the other 80, okay? I'm going to say to my sales team, I want some of their 80, right? I want some of your business. So using my salespeople, not to go out and find new customers necessarily, but to specifically go after your customers is something that you can do. They can be targeted to capture market share from competitors, right? Is something good. I mean, when they get new customers, they do bring them into this new market, right? And they add them to the market share, certainly. But definitely a part of that is capturing competitors' customers. Now, the last one I want to talk about is cross-selling, upselling, and second chance selling. Now, again, for any of you that have worked as servers or understand restaurants at all, upselling is a word we use a lot in restaurants. And servers tend to use this term upselling as a blanket term for all three of these, but really they have different meanings. So I want to kind of break them down a little bit more. Now, the whole idea with these techniques is you are going to add to the overall purchase that a customer is going to make. So in this case, the salesperson maybe didn't even get the customer. The customer maybe walked in off the street with an intention to buy. But the salesperson using these techniques adds to the total amount that they do end up purchasing. And you've had this happen to you. Again, restaurants, retail stores, right? Anytime you buy something, people will use these techniques on you. So the first one, upselling, the whole point of upselling is you are going to take whatever the person's intending to buy, and you are going to move them up to a higher level of the product they're buying. All right? So that could be, someone's going to order a hamburger and you talk them into the bacon double cheeseburger, right? Still getting hamburger, but getting a higher level of hamburger. It could be getting them to buy a more expensive car, right? Oh, I know you're going to get that car, but this car's more fun, right? And you buy a more expensive car, whatever the case may be. So you're actually changing the product they're buying to a higher level version of that. Now, cross-selling is a little different. And again, people sometimes confuse this with upselling. In cross-selling, I am not actually changing the product you're buying. That stays the same. I'm adding additional products that relate to it. So you go down to Tim Hortons and you say, I'm going to have a coffee and a sandwich. And the person behind the counter says, do you want to add a donut? Make it a combo? Of course you want to add a donut. They're donuts, right? That's a cross-sell because you're still getting the same coffee and sandwich, but you're adding this extra item to it, okay? So that makes it cross-selling. And then the last one there, second chance selling, that's when you actually go out and it's a customer has made a purchase, the purchase is done, completed, they have their product, everything's good, and now you try and get them to come back to purchase more product, right? Something different maybe, okay? So I don't know, anything you've ever bought where you give them your email address and then you start getting promotional offers by email from them, that's second chance selling technique, right? They're trying to draw you back to a store to buy again, right? Customer appreciation cards, like buy 10 coffees, get one free, if you ever had that kind of thing, that's second chance selling. That's encouraging repeat business, right? And bringing you back again and again.
So how about the recommendation to customers?
In what sense? What kind of recommendation?
Like today you have the special items in the store, you try to sell that to the customer who doesn't know it.
That would be a cross-selling. Unless it's like if they're still buying the same thing they came in to buy, but you're getting to buy something else, that's cross-selling. If they came in to get, say, a coffee and you're upgrading them to a latte, that would be an upsell because you're changing the initial product they're buying. Do you understand? That's the difference. Whether you change the product or you just simply add to the product, right, is what really distinguishes those two things. So let's talk about this from a from a hotel perspective, right? What would be a version of upselling in a hotel? It's one very obvious one. Exactly, a room upgrade. A room upgrade is upselling, right? They're changing the room they're going to stay in to a higher valued room. So that's really straightforward. That's absolutely upselling in a hotel. Cross-selling? Loyalty program in what sense?
My grandma has like a card to the casino, and every once in a while she'll get like a free ticket to come back to the casino or
Okay, so that loyalty program, because it's getting them to come back after a sale, that wouldn't exactly be cross-selling. That would actually be more second chance selling. Yeah, second chance selling. Yeah, there you go. Cross-selling, what would be cross-selling? Yeah, dinner, spa, right? So any other revenue center other than rooms is a cross-sale in a hotel. So getting them to go enjoy the restaurant or getting them to go to the spa, right? So even if you say, hey, you know what? And you can do these, they can happen at the same time. You could say, hey, if you go to say you come in with, your significant other and you're checking into the hotel into a standard room and the person says, for an extra $150, we could put you in the romantic weekend package. We would upgrade you to a suite and it would add, dinner for two and a visit to the spa, right? So now I'm actually doing an upgrade and a cross sell all at once, right? And often kind of combination things do those type of things. And then, of course, yes, second chance selling on an individual basis would be a customer loyalty program, like you mentioned. But what else? I mean, we're talking about group sales, right? In group sales, upselling would be changing things that the whole group does. So say they booked a dinner and they're going to have like the chicken dinner, right? Well, if I talk them into the steak and lobster dinner, that's an upsell, right? Because they were going to have a dinner, I'm making it a better dinner. Cross-selling would be adding extra items. Hey, you know what? For this much more, your group could, go and visit the spa together or go do this. That would be cross-selling for groups. But what would be second chance selling? When are we second chance selling? in group sales. Yeah, there you go. A discount for next time, right? Or even building on just the relationship you have. Right? So when a salesperson, calls someone up and says, "Hey, you know what? I just wanted to check in. You had your event a couple weeks ago. Hope everything was the way you wanted it." Yeah, great. Excellent. You know what? I'm glad you enjoyed it. And if you decide to come again, we'd absolutely love to give you that offer again. Bring back your group next year. If you got to do it next quarter, we're there for you. We know how to do it. You like the service. We're there. So just that follow-up sales call itself is really the second chance selling. Yeah?
Would upselling and cross-selling, would salesmen use like sales promotion a lot for that?
Yeah, often, like I said, a combo is a sales promotion, right? Yeah, so certainly, yeah, upselling, cross-selling, you'll even get things like, you know what, we have an upgrade available, and because it's available, I can give you a discount on it.
Yeah.
Right? So, yeah, that would be using a sales promotion to kind of at the spur of the moment to get it to go up. So let me just play a little video for you here, though. So let's look at a more description of this whole thing.
McDonald's simple question, would you like fries with that, is probably one of the best examples of how successful cross-selling can bring in significant additional revenues and profits, here in the multi-billions of dollars all around the world. McDonald's have managed to get it just right. The customer is in full buying mode. The additional expense is minimal, but the value to both parties is substantial. Who doesn't like a chip? You should only offer additional products or services when your customer has already decided to buy. Striking too early in the sales process will lose focus on the initial product offered. You may already have elicited another requirement when discussing your prime product offering, but park it until you close the main event. Then quickly bring it in and remind the customer what he has already mentioned would be an additional benefit to you, and offer to roll that product into the sale. Don't get carried away with upselling too much, or you will crash your customer's budget on what could be a secondary sale of greater value. It should not be considered a throwaway item with which to grab more cash or get rid of excess stock. Make sure that your upsell is relevant to the customer and that it will add real value to his business. If your qualification process has been executed properly, this should fall easily into place. Your cross-sell products should be relevant, useful, and offer a lower cost option if bought at that particular moment in time. So, if you just closed a deal for IP desk phones, for example, say that you have headsets available that you would be willing to bundle into the order. If the customer shows interest, just ask how many he wants. Talk to your manager and marketing team about linking associated product, resources, and accessories to your prime product offerings within your company web pages, and encourage your customer to look at them.
This is that integrated marketing concept, right? So it's saying make sure the rest of the marketing team is using integrated marketing to help you with cross-selling and upselling.
And in convivial conversation, what other customers sometimes add to their order, and state the benefits that they experience. Of course, this should only be attempted once you've secured the order or prime offering and you've pre-checked that the items or resources are available. During the course of your sales process with the customer, you will have asked him lots of questions in an effort to uncover, isolate, and address his pain points. Focus on your prime product offering, but check and scan your notes for other qualified opportunities that can be up or cross-sold.
All right. So some interesting points there made there. Definitely, the idea of, not overdoing it, right? Upselling. No one likes to feel like they're being sold. No one wants to feel like they're just being targeted for money. And that's one of the dangers with upselling, right? It could be done poorly. So to me, like what the difference is, and I've done this training servers, even like really qualified servers who've done it for years. There's definitely places to learn how to do this better. And one of them for me is to really understand that upselling and cross-selling can be done from just a straight sales mentality of increasing the total bill, right? But if you're really good at it, you can actually do it from more of a marketing mentality, where it's not just about increasing the value or the amount that the person spends, but about increasing their actual enjoyment, because what you're adding to them, adding to their bill, are things that make them enjoy the whole experience better. So an example of this, I had a server, she'd been a server for like 15 years, knew what she did, and she thought she was the absolute queen of upselling. Every time someone ordered a drink, a cocktail, she said, do you want to double that up for $2? Right? And she said this to everybody. And she said it so much that, a certain amount would say yes, and she would get a lot of doubles added to bills and stuff like that. But to me, that fell short. To me, that was just pure selling for the sake of adding money on a bill. And it wasn't necessarily great service. To be really good at this, what you want to do is have more of that marketing mentality. And marketing mentality starts with understanding the customer. Who is the customer and what are their needs? And your recommendations as far as cross-selling and upselling, second chance selling, should be reflective of the customer you're actually talking to. So let's say a couple gentlemen come in for a business lunch. They're working, they're obviously going back to work, they're dressed for work, suit, tie, right? When they order lunch, money's obviously not a big deal to them, right? They're ordering the steak for lunch, not the burger, right? So I'm getting a read, right? That they're working, it's serious, but you know what? They order a drink, it's lunch, so they order scotch and soda. Now, my one server would say, oh, do you want to double that up for $2? Now, do these people who are spending this kind of money really care about saving a couple bucks and getting a double in the middle of their workday? It's probably not what they're looking for, right? It's probably not going to change their experience. But if instead I looked and said, you know what? They obviously are here to enjoy a really nice meal. They don't want quantity, they want quality. So instead of offering this person the double, I'm going to say, you know what? We have some excellent selection of single malt scotches, right? An upgrade on the scotch to a better quality, right? I offer them this, they go, oh, well, that would be great. That will make my meal better. And they have a better overall experience because of it, right? And that's what it's about. Good cross-selling, good upselling, good second chance selling is about understanding that it's really about the customer and improving their overall experience. Yes, it adds to the revenue, and yes, it helps your profitability, but overall, you want to make sure the customer experience is improved so that you're guaranteeing that they come back. I mean, that's where you're really going to get your second chance selling, and that's where the real revenue is. So being smart about that. And the same thing applies in hotels, right? Reading your customer, offering the right things. I mean, if you're working at the front desk and a couple comes in, obviously on a romantic weekend, then yes, it's probably a pretty good idea to say, we have a really nice spa package for two. But if that's a family comes in and there's the parents and their kids are running around yelling and screaming, well, you offer them a spa package, all they're going to say is, I wish I have my kids, right? But instead, why don't you start talking about the kids' programs that exist? Right? Or the babysitting services, or maybe you have a family suite where there's a separate bedroom for the parents and a room for the kids, right? Now you're talking about things that interest them and make their experience better, right? So upselling, cross-selling, second chance, great techniques to use. Definitely something that kind of set you apart as an employee, that you do this consistently and look for opportunities for it, but make sure you're looking for the right opportunities. Right? Make sure you're always considering the customer when you do these things. And that's kind of what brings us to relationship marketing. This is where you kind of separate yourself from kind of, good marketing type sales versus kind of used car sales, right? Like, is it about just one quick transaction and you forget about the customer? Or are you trying to create a relationship? Are you trying to create loyalty and commitment in your customers? Because in sales, like I said, it's really expensive. It takes time to go and sit and get customers and talk to them. Do you want to have to do that every time because everybody's a brand new customer? Wouldn't it make more sense to have this people call you and go, hey, you know what? That was great last time. Do you think we could do that again? Sure, absolutely. Sales done. Nice and quick and efficient because you don't have to go through the whole introduction again, right? The bread and butter for a salesperson is repeat business, and that comes from strong relationships. So you're trying to build customer loyalty with these people. Now, there's really 3 levels of relationship marketing, right? Transactional, relationship selling, and partnership. So transactional selling is that kind of, no relationship at all. It is the kind of one-time sale. You're not really worried about them coming back, and there's nothing really permanent in it. But again, that's not really going to work for us. In hotel sales, this is not the type of business we tend to do in group sales. What we do is we want to focus on relationship selling. So you are going to contact the seller after a purchase to build that connection, right? To have them keep coming back, right? You're going to look for opportunities for return business or referrals for them for other business as well, going on from there. And you do this by building trust with customers. Trust is a really important word here, okay? A trust and a bond. And if the customer really trusts you and really has faith in you, you can go to a level of relationship selling where you actually get to what you would call partnering. And that's where the customer stops seeing you as a salesperson, but as a partner in their own success. They call you because they know that you're going to be there for them and help them be successful in their endeavors. Convention and visitors bureaus that we are talking about, they are all about creating this partnership relationship, right? What they want to do is say to a meeting planner, whatever you need in this town, we're here to help you make it happen. Whether that's dealing with politicians or bylaws or making connections with different hotels or activities, right? Getting rooms booked where you need them, we're here to help you out. We will be your partner in your success, right? And that builds loyalty between a meeting planner and a destination. So, let's understand this transactional relationship concept a little better.
Your clients are trying to reach customers, but do they know they're trying to reach 2 different kinds of customers? When people shop, they are either in a transactional mode or a relational mode. In transactional mode, they're only worried about getting the best possible price. In relational mode, their biggest concern is making the best possible choice. If we take a closer look at transactional shoppers, we'll find that their biggest fear is paying more than they had to pay or more than someone else paid. They only care about the immediate transaction and aren't thinking about future purchases from the merchant they buy from. The first thing they'll look at is the price tag. They love to compare and negotiate and almost always visit many stores before deciding where to buy the item or service they're after. They don't consider all the time they spend shopping to be part of the purchase price. In other words, you can't appeal to them by saying, save time and gas money by shopping with us. They usually do their own research and don't want the help of an expert. Talking about the deal they got is one way transactional shoppers can make sure they didn't pay more than someone else. This can make them an excellent source of word-of-mouth advertising, but only to other transactional shoppers. When we get to know...
All right, so let's talk about transactional shopping for a minute. What are some things you feel like you would do transactional shopping for? Where you would go out, take the time, just like to find the best price. That's what really matters. Food, yeah. So, like grocery food?
I meant like eating out, like.
Oh, yeah. Okay, all right. So you look for the best deal on fast food. You're getting a burger. It's just a burger. Whoever's got the coupon, that's where you go?
Yeah.
All right, fair enough. Definitely.
We get coupons in the mail.
Yeah, you look at coupons, right? Coupons are all about transactional sales, right? One-time kind of things. And grocery stores have this too, right? People go shopping at the grocery store that has the best price because, milk, eggs, bread, a lot of these are just straight commodities, one versus the other. There's no real difference, right? So you get kind of transactional sales there. All right. Anything else that kind of pops up? Yep. Okay, so yeah, price matching is an interesting kind of example of transactional shopping where they say, look, if you are a transactional shopper, You can just tell us whatever price you're going to get somewhere, and we'll give that to you. Now that's very much transactional, interestingly, because there's no loyalty built there, right? Because they know you're obviously someone that's just going to go wherever the best price is, right? So they're just, it's more about price than anything else. What about in travel? What do you shop for in travel that would be purely transactional? When you're going to travel, what would you buy where you, hey, I'm going to just look, find the best possible price, that's what I'm doing?
So I use like the trip central and I like to kind of away, but I look for like resorts for the best price. There's like add-on pays too, so it's like $39 on top of those pay. And some websites you can get cheaper.
Okay.
And I also use like Oyster to actually get like the review of
Yep.
the website.
Okay, so in travel, that's one of the things we've seen, right? The creation of websites like Expedia and that kind of thing, and there's numerous right now, that's really created a transactional marketplace in travel, right? I mean, airline tickets. Do you always book with the same airline or do you book with the cheapest one? Yeah, I mean, airlines are absolutely transactional. Again, it's kind of like the eggs and the milk. An airline seat is an airline seat. Right? You may think one gives a little better service than the other, but how much more are you really going to pay for it, right? So very much transactional. And that does exist in things like also hotels, right? There is transactional shopping for hotels. If you were going and say you're going to spend the night in Toronto, how many of you would book at a specific hotel because you like it? And how many of you would go on Expedia or whatever website to find the cheapest price in Toronto? I mean, you might set like 3-star or higher, right? But you'll look for a cheap hotel. Now, you do have to point out, though, that this is at the kind of more moderate level of the marketplace, right? So transactional exists at the more moderate level of the marketplace. When you get into luxury hotels, this is less the case, right? Someone wants to stay at a Four Seasons, they're staying at the Four Seasons because that's the kind of person that doesn't really look. To be honest, I kind of fall in the middle here a bit. I used to be very transactional. But if I'm on a road trip, if I'm traveling by myself, I'm very transactional, right? I don't know, whatever hotel room, that's fine. If I'm traveling with my family, I got my wife, my kids, we're driving down the road, I need to find a hotel. If I was on my own, I'd just look and say, whatever's cheapest at the next exit's fine. But if I'm with my family, I know that if I stay at a Hampton Inn, my kids really like Hampton Inn. They love the breakfast. They love kind of the feel. It's comfortable. The rooms are always nice. It's good space, right? So I will spend an extra $40, $50 to stay at a Hampton Inn versus whatever other one's there because I know it works for them. So I'm kind of on that cusp now, right? It depends which one I'm shopping for. So that's kind of transactional.
Relational shoppers will discover their biggest fear is making a poor choice, regardless of the price. Relational shoppers will buy an item or a service as soon as they feel good about their choice. Therefore, it's important for the seller to make relational shoppers feel confident. Relational shoppers are probably already thinking about the purchases they'll make from the business they're currently shopping at. They're looking for more than a product. They're looking for the right store to buy it from. They're paying attention to the way they feel while at a particular location. This field includes the decor, lighting, and service. For the most part, relational shoppers are looking for an expert they can trust. Once they find that expert, they'll keep coming back. Relational shoppers dislike driving all over town to shop for one thing. They consider time spent shopping to be part of the purchase price, and they hate the thought of negotiating. On average, about half of the shoppers in a store will be in transactional mode. The other half will be in relational mode.
So let's take a minute and talk about relational shoppers. For relational shoppers, what would be some things you relational shop for? So what are things you buy where you are like, I like this, I know what I'm buying, I'm going there. What's that? Phones, yeah. Phones can be very much relational. Especially what company? Apple, right? Yeah, Apple in everything they do is very relational. If I'm going to buy a PC, you know what? HP, Asus, Dell, whatever's the best deal. But if I buy Apple, I'm buying Apple. And I'm buying it because it's Apple. And I'll spend more and I don't have to waste time with anything, right? It's always the same price wherever you go, right? So definitely Apple does that. What are some other things we relational shop for?
Like tech stuff.
Okay, like what?
Like maybe a drone.
All right, so you maybe certain piece of technology, you like what it does, you trust it, right? You trust it. You trust in something, and that's like Apple, right? You trust in Apple technology. What are some other things? How many people, when they go to get a haircut, look for the best possible price and go there? No, right? How many people have someone very specific they go to? Yeah. Why? Why is it so clear cut when you go to get a haircut?
Because I've been there before and they did a good job.
Yeah. And you know what? When you're getting your haircut, trust is a big thing, right? If they screw it up, you got to live with it for like a month before you can get it cut again, probably, right? So trust is really big in that. Clothes? Just looking for the best price, or do you have your places you tend to go? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you've ever gone into a Lululemon, that's relational, right? Because you know you can get those kind of clothes at other places cheaper, but you like them, you trust that their clothes fit well, that they look a certain way, that the quality's there, right? So clothes is something we tend to relational shop for. So how does this relate to the hotel industry, this group convention meeting sales industry? Well, like I said before, transactional shopping happens with kind of the more moderate level. But also the other part of that is it happens more with people who are booking just for themselves. Kind of like I said, when I book for my family, I'm a little more relational than I book just for myself, right? So it really tends to exist more in the transient individual traveler market, right? Where they're spending their own personal money. If it's someone booking for a group, like an organization, a corporation, they will tend to act more relational because trust becomes very important. If I'm booking a hotel for 200 people in the corporation I work for, right, I am putting my job on the line. And I'm not going to save a couple bucks because it's the company's money, right? Am I going to risk 200 people in my company not liking what I did because I saved a few dollars? Right? No, I'm gonna want to assure that the quality's there, and I'm gonna have to really trust the hotel and whoever's selling me that hotel that they can do what they're promising, right? So trust is a really big thing when it comes to group sales. And again, with trust, you need relationship marketing, right? So we keep coming back to that point. So that's why, you know what, for us, hotel, group, convention sales, right, it's not transactional. It's going to be a relational situation. Oh.
There are more of them. About half of the shoppers in the store will be in transactional mode, the other half will be in relational mode. Since transactional shoppers will drive all over town from store to store, it appears there are more of them. But every transactional shopper will visit or has visited the competition. Relational shoppers will stop visiting other stores as soon as they find one they're comfortable in, even if it's the first one. Transactional shoppers have no problem using one merchant against the other, finding out the best price they can get at one store, using that price to get bigger discounts at competitors, and continuing
price matching
until they think that price can't get any lower. Unless you're the last stop on a transactional shopper's route, it's unlikely you'll get the sale, even though you've invested a lot of time showing them the product and negotiating a price. Relational shoppers will almost always pay the asking price with very little, but usually no negotiating.
So we're actually going to have a class where we're going to talk all about negotiation, right? And I want you to remember this point they just made. Transactional shoppers are tough negotiators, right? Because they're going for the best price, and that's ultimately what matters. A relational shopper doesn't really want to negotiate that much because they know exactly what it is they want to buy.
They're more into like the brand.
It's about the brand. It's about the product. They want to trust what they're buying. So when you're doing negotiation in a group sales situation, and you know that this person wants to buy what you have because they trust it, know that even though they may be doing the tough negotiation, underlying that is the relational shopper who says, okay, whatever, we're still just going to buy here. And it might just be what they're doing to try and get the best price. But it doesn't actually mean they won't buy from you no matter what, right? Either way. Or maybe it doesn't take that much to get them on board. All right, so it's important to remember this understanding of transactional and relational shopping when it comes to negotiation, all right, which is in a couple weeks.
Here's the important part. The typical business will invest a lot of time catering to the swarms of transactional shoppers that visit them, but will make more profit from relational customers, even though there appears to be fewer of them. It's important for businesses to decide if they want to target transactional customers or relational customers, and then plan their marketing and advertising accordingly. It's okay to target transactional as long as you can consistently offer the best price. Typically, unless your client is a low-price leader, relational customers will create more profit than transactional, even though there appears to be fewer of them. One final note. People can and usually do switch between transactional and relational modes, depending on what they're shopping for. They may be in relational mode for buying a car and transactional for a dishwasher. And the same item, for example, a computer, can attract both relational and transactional customers.
So there you go. That's that point made, right? Right there he says it. For a computer, it can really work both ways. So understanding this relationship concept is important, right? Because it helps guide us as far as, well, what kind of sales do we want to do? Where do we want to be? Now, we're going to get into the sales process, but before we do, I just want to distinguish some different types of sales calls because I'm going to use these terms when I walk through the kind of sales process, all right? So the different types of calls a salesperson can do. The first one is a cold call. A cold call means a sales call where you have never met with the client before. They might not even know you're coming, right? They might, but they might not know you're coming. You don't have a specific set of time. You're really just, meeting them quickly. And your whole goal here is not necessarily to make the sale, just to capture their interest enough to get a chance to come and do a proper sales call, a presentation sales call, okay? The elevator sales pitches you were working on for the last 5 weeks, the last 5 that you've done, this is cold calling, right? This is that 1 minute quick blurb, capture their interest, try to create a designated presentation sales call. An inside call is in a hotel. It's a specific hotel thing. An inside call is a sales call where the person comes to you, right? And this is great for a hotel. See, most of the time you go on a sales call, you're going to the customer. So if you're selling hotel, at best you can try and describe that hotel to them, right? And use images and technology to do that. But if you can have the customer come to you and actually be in your hotel, well, now you can really make the experience tangible. And we talked about, right, that challenge of tangibility, intangibility, right? An inside call means there they are right on property. You can walk them around. You can show them the meeting rooms. You can show them the hotel rooms. You can even sit down and feed them the meal that they're going to have when they have their event. You can create a real tangible experience. So this is a great thing, but we don't get to do it often in hotels because most of the time the customer we're selling to doesn't live where the hotel is. So unless they happen to just be passing through, or maybe if they're really a good customer, you do a fam trip where you're actually going to pay to bring them to your property, you're not going to get to do this inside sales call. But when you can, it's a great opportunity, right? It really gives you one of the best abilities to showcase what you're doing. A public relations call is a sales call that really has nothing to do with making a specific sale. It's all about relationship building, right? So public relations call is showing up at your customer and saying, hey, I just come by, wanted to say hi. Hey, that was a great thing you had with us a couple months ago. And you know what? If you need anything, I'm absolutely there. You have my contact information. But for now, I just wanted to come in and check in with you, make sure you're doing well, right? Building rapport, building relationship. Reminding them that I'm around, and if they need anything, I'm absolutely there to help, right? And just building on the bond. This is part of relationship marketing. And then the last one is the presentation call. This is really what you're working towards in your cold calling usually, is to get a designated set sales call where they are expecting you, they've set aside some time, now you can come in and present the product to them, the hotel to them. This is actually what your next assignment is. This is the presentation you'll be doing at the end of the semester. right? So now you all have your sales kits. You're going to take those sales kits, you're going to take your group that you've been working with, and you are going to create a 10-minute presentation on the hotel that you've got a sales kit for. So you've already should have all of the groundwork done. You should have all of the research done. You now need to tailor this into a 10-minute presentation. Next week, I'll give you the rubric for this. We'll talk more about it. And I'll give you a specific type of customer that I want you to sell to. All right? Because part of it is, right, that customizability, that personalization, right? So you can take that information and really start to personalize it to a specific type of business or customer or industry. All right? So presentation call. Now, the reason I want you to understand those those terms is because we apply them as we go through the sales process. So this is our sales process. This is the 7 steps that you walk a customer from start to finish. Okay? And it begins down here at the bottom. Step 1, prospecting and qualifying. Prospecting and qualifying, well, first of all, prospecting is just that. It is going out, like prospecting, like searching for gold. Prospecting, that's really what you're doing here. You're searching for your gold, which is your customers, right? You're going out and you're searching for potential customers. Anybody, you're not looking for the ideal. You are looking to accumulate all the potential customers you possibly could have. And that's what it is now. It's numbers, as many numbers as you can get. Who are all our potential customers? Once we've done that, the next part of step 1's process is to, within that prospecting, start to qualify customers, which is starting to identify the best customers, the best potential customers. And this is a really important stage. Keep in mind what I said, right? I mean, sales is expensive. You're limited by time, you're limited by money. So I might find 1,000 potential customers. I can't talk to all of them. So qualifying is where we start to establish, well, if we can't talk to all of them, who are the best possible customers we could talk to? Today, actually, we're not going to do an elevator sales pitch. I got a little activity for you at the end of the day. What we're actually going to do instead, our in-class activity, would be a little bit of prospecting and qualifying. All right? And we walk you through that later. So we've qualified it. We know exactly who our best customers are. Now we want to go and approach them. This is your cold call, right? The approach is your initial contact. It's your cold call. So the whole point of the approach, though, is to capture enough interest of the customer to allow them to then book a formal sales call, which would be your presentation, which is stage 3, right? So we do an approach, which we'll try and craft a good strategic approach that lets them come back and do a formal presentation sales call that's now tailored to that customer where we're trying to get the sale. Now, this sales process is standardized. This isn't just hotel. This is for any salesperson. This is the sales process. So the next step, step 4, for our industry is really challenging. And that's the demonstration. After you've kind of explained to a customer why this product or service is really good for them, you want to demonstrate it. You want them to experience the product or service. If I was selling a car, this is easy. Right? I tell her all about the car, its great features, how much fun it is to drive, and then I let you take it for a test drive. That's your demonstration. I mean, it's perfect. But we can't do that in a hotel. I mean, if it's an inside sales call, we can actually come pretty close here, right? But that's not usually the case. So this is where we need to start getting creative. Use of technology, right? Good videos, right? Video walkthroughs, good photos. And you know what, out there now, and I'm sure it's there, is they will have virtual tours, right? With the virtual goggles, where you can actually walk around a hotel. And they're developing all that for anything where you do sales like this. So demonstration, right? Other things you could do, well, if you're in another city and you have a hotel in that city, you could invite them and have the meeting at that property and say, well, this is how our property is similar to where you are right now. You might even bring your sous chef along and have the sous chef prepare a meal like the one they're going to have on their event, right? Or bring some samples along of products that you'll have. But you're trying to overcome that kind of issue of intangibility and the fact that they aren't on site. Now, if we've done a successful demonstration, we now start to get objections from the customer. I'm going to talk about this in a little more detail when I come to it. But we start to get our customers' objections. And if we overcome all those objections, we get to the closing. Now, closing also includes negotiation. Negotiation, like I said, we are going to do a class just on negotiation. Right? It's a great skill. It's a skill everyone really needs to develop for business, and it doesn't hurt in your personal life as well. Okay? So it's a fun class. To be honest, it's one of my favorite classes to teach. I really enjoy negotiating. It's this fun little game you get to play, I think. So I'm going to teach you a whole class on negotiation. You're going to do an exercise in class where you actually negotiate with each other, and then you'll do a short write-up on that negotiation, just reflecting on it. This actually has 5% on it, the negotiation class. You can't miss that class. I'll make sure I send an email to everybody saying, this is a class you have to be at. It's basically 5% for the in-class assignment that day. So negotiation, closing the deal with the customer, you make the sale. Now, if you're transactional selling only, you could stop here, but we're not. We're relationship selling, right? We're doing relationship marketing. So then we have step 7, which is the follow-up. Right? You have to come back to the customer. You have to keep building on that and trying to get the return business, right? The second chance selling. So we're going to have a follow-up as well. So going through those, prospecting, right? Identifying any potential customers. We've talked about that. And we're going to talk about that in a little more detail as the class goes on. In qualifying, we're going to talk in a little more detail as well, which is determining the best customer as far as their needs, their income, their authority. So we're going to come back and talk about those a bit more today. Getting into next week too, we'll start talking about these. So the approach, the salesperson's initial contact with the customer. Again, this is like the cold call. This is your elevator sales pitch, right? Now, one of the steps not shown there, but we should really talk about it, is pre-presentation planning. You don't just go with the same pitch to every customer. I mean, if you were, you could just send them an advertisement. Right? The whole point is personalization, customization of message. So it's worth taking time here between your approach and your presentation to do some strategizing. Using all the information you can collect about this customer, understanding their needs, what it is they're looking for, and what it is you have to offer, you can now tailor the message. You can create a message specific for them. And you go in and then you do your presentation. Presentation is all about strong communication strategies, but using technology, right? By being a good communicator, doing, good public speaking, right? And presenting your product in the best possible way. Then we get to demonstration, allowing the customer to experience the good or service. Again, big challenge for us, right? To do this sometimes, but there are ways we can try and overcome it in hotels. And then handling objections. Now, I wanted to talk about this one a little bit separately here. Often people say, objections, and they get defensive about this concept, right? Oh, well, people don't like my product. Well, I don't like that, right? But you have to realize, to a salesperson, objections are good. Objections are great. If a person's asking you questions and they're kind of challenging you, it means they're interested. If they're not asking questions, they really don't care. I actually had a roommate in Whistler who did timeshare sales. Now, if you know timeshare sales, it's about pitching the same thing over and over and over again to 100 people to try and get a couple of sales, right? So I said to him, God, how do you deal with it? What's the worst? You must have people that you absolutely know aren't buying from you that are just arguing with you all the time. He goes, no, that's not the worst. He goes, the worst thing is the person that yeses you to death. That's the term they use, yes you to death. It's the person that while you're walking them through, they're like, oh, this is great. Yeah, this is lovely. Oh, yeah, no, that seems like a great price for that. Oh, no, absolutely. I totally agree. This is the customer that is never buying from you. Because if they were really going to spend the money and buy from you, they're going to ask questions. They're going to challenge you. They're going to say, well, what about this? What about that? Could that be cheaper? What about... They're doing that because they're really considering your offer. So objections are positive. And objections are your opportunity to really understand what matters to your customer and to, again, start to adjust and customize and change your message to match what it is they're saying. So we're actually going to talk about handling objections, right, from a kind of challenge standpoint, from a customer service standpoint as well, and how do we learn from that, and how do we use that to be better at our jobs. Again, negotiation, right, dealing with the customer, we're going to have a class on negotiation, which is great. We're going to talk about negotiation techniques, things we see, and how do we deal with it. And then, of course, building on the relationship, building a mutual, beneficial, long-term relationship, right? We're going to follow up with our customer. We're going to, first of all, assure that they were totally satisfied with everything we've done for them, right? And then building on that trust that we're building with them, right? Building on that trust, we're going to try and turn them into a repeat customer, right? Supporting their efforts, showing them that we're there to make them successful. So that's our sales process. Now, the thing of it is, a lot of time when you sales this sales process, what you actually see is this sales process turned upside down. And it's referred to as the sales process funnel. And there's a reason we call it a funnel. There is a reason we shape it this way. So I'm going to let this guy explain it. There's a little link right here under sales process in the title.
I want to show you how quickly and easy it is to build out your website, your sales, and your marketing funnels inside of ClickFunnels.
Now, he goes on for a bit, so I'm going to start it at about 2 minutes.
Tell you what we went over in this meeting today. So we're talking about the sales funnel that we have created for Prospero. We did an experiment last week. So I want to share with you the results and kind of talk to you about the concept of doing a sales funnel and learning. So the idea of a sales funnel is that when you have some kind of sales process, there's always like a lot of people who begin the process, and each step that they go down, some of them continue, but others drop. So the people who get to the end of the process, there are not many of them. So that's why it's called a funnel, because a lot of people started and only a few finish it. So we did kind of an experiment last week. We sent an email to 1,500 people telling them about the Prospero beta. And then we sent it to the landing page that I designed 2 weeks ago. And from the 1,500 people that got the email, only about, I think 72 people actually clicked on the email to see the landing page. So notice how many people dropped, because not many people open the email, and it's about, I think, 4.5% don't get it, that actually click in the email to get to the landing page. Now from the landing page, we send them to a survey to ask them who they are, to kind of understand what type of beta testers we're going to have. And from the 72 people, only 46 people completed the survey, which is
All right, so you see kind of what's happening here, right? As you ask customers to do more, you start to get drop-off, right? So taking at the sales process that I was showing you, right, the initial prospecting, right? You send out an email to 1,500 people looking for potential customers. Only 72 actually click through, right? So now we've identified 72 potential customers, right? Now, in this case, qualifying, you could say, asking them to do a survey, which is going to take some time, starts to qualify that customer, right? Someone who's willing to take the time to do the survey is someone who I could really potentially address, right? So again, more drop-off, right? And this is how it goes. There's a concept in selling that you can ask a customer to do something very small and simple, maybe even positive for them. And then the next thing you ask them, ask for a little bit more than the first thing. And the next thing after that, ask for a little more than the thing before that. And you move them through these kind of incremental challenges to the point where taking the leap to actually buying a product is a very small leap from where they're at, right? Has anyone gone in the mall, at Georgian Mall, you walk past, there's a makeup, kind of like a skincare store there, and there's two girls out front, and they say, would you like to have a free sample? Yeah. First request. Would you like to have a free sample? And all you have to do is reach out and take it, and it's free. They're giving it to you. Very, very simple.
But then they drag you into the store.
Well, there you go. The next request. Would you like to come in for a free makeover? Again, still free. Very small request. But now they're asking for more time, right? So you go in. Would you like me to show you some of our products? No nothing free here now. Now taking more time to demonstrate and show you products. Working you through in steps to, would you like to buy a product? Well, I've already gone through all this. I've been here for an hour now. I might as well, I can't walk away without buying something, right? And one more small step, you make the sale.
My experience there was not great though when I did it.
Did you actually go in?
Yeah.
Okay. And?
Because they were really aggressive for their selling.
Well, they're using that whole process you're going through is a clear demonstration of sales process, right? Of building connection, building, right, getting you drawn in, small requests, building up to a bigger request. So you actually, in a sense, take this from it, regardless of how bad it was. You learned a lot in that about sales and about how this manufactured sales process works.
The thing was, I was considering going back to buy it because I didn't really have enough money at the time.
Mm-hmm.
It was an expensive product.
Yeah.
So I told her I was considering coming back in the future to buy the product, and she's like, well, what's stopping you from buying it right now?
We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that in negotiation class, that concept and what was happening. So you actually learned a lot there. We'll just start to point out exactly what it is as we go along, okay? But that's kind of what you see. That is a clear example of this concept. I'll let him finish a little more.
It's more than 50%, so that means that the landing page is actually doing a great job because most people who saw the landing page wanted to complete the survey. So from the people who completed the survey, after that there was a sign up for the beta. So let's see, let me check the numbers. Only 23 people, so again, we lose about 50%, signed up to create an account, and out of those, only 17 have actually created proposals. So if you look at the top to bottom, from people who start the process to the people who finish the process and actually create a proposal, it's around 1%. So those are not great results, but it's...
All right, so this idea of the sales process really does apply. Now, let's turn this around and look at it from a hotel perspective, right? So if we start, and we'll do it backwards. I always think it's kind of interesting to work it backwards. So down here at the bottom, we have the follow-up, right? Well, let's go to closing, right? We'll start at closing, because you should follow up with everyone who you close with, really. So closing. Let's say to close with one customer, all right? To get one customer, what do we have to do? Now, you'll hear people say sales is a numbers game. What they're referring to is what I'm going to explain, right? Closing one customer. Well, how many customers do I think I have to get to the negotiation stage to close a customer? You know, to get, like if I'm negotiating with people, maybe I get half of the ones I'm negotiating with, right? So I have to negotiate with 2 customers. Now, how many are in the objection stage would end up negotiating with me? Well, you know what, let's say half again, right? So maybe 4 people that get to the point where they're really asking me about my product, 2 of those end up negotiating, 1 of them ends up closing a deal. So now I'm at 4, right? Now, the ones that were, got to actually question me about my product, I probably demonstrated the product to, I don't know, how many people? Well, let's say I demonstrated it to 5, right? Maybe it wasn't such a big thing. Of the 5 that, maybe tried out my product, 4 of them started actually started having objections and started talking to me. Maybe 1 person after the demonstration was like, no, I'm out, I just want a demonstration. So there's 5. Now, how many never actually tried the product? They only just kind of saw the presentation? Well, again, let's say I presented to 10 people and only 5 really wanted to try the product at the end. So now I'm at 10 presentations. And this is where things really start to jump. Because to get someone to sit down and let you do a formal presentation that takes real time, right, that's a big step. So how many people do you think I have to approach to get 1 person to do a presentation? How many cold calls do you think you make to get 1 presentation call? I think being conservative, being optimistic about this, I think you got to talk to at least 10 people. before you find one that will actually let you sit down and have their time and do a presentation. And I think I'm being really optimistic there, right? So let's say to do 10 presentation calls, I have to approach 100 people. And how many are worth approaching? Well, probably, again, you can probably apply that same kind of number, right? Like to find one person really worth going out and cold calling, I got to probably look at 10 customers. So I probably have to go back and prospect and qualify 1,000 people to get 100, right? Or sorry, to get 100 that I would cold call, right? So I'm going to go out, prospect and qualify 100 customers, which means to qualify 100 or 1,000, I got to prospect even more than that, right? But going through prospecting and qualifying, I find 100 people, right? So I look at 1,000, I find 100, I cold call 100. Of the 100 I cold call, I get 10 presentations. Of my 10 presentations, I get 5 demonstrations, 4 objecting, 2 that actually get to negotiation, and 1 that I sell to. And that's the reality of sales. When they say that sales is a numbers game, what they're referring to is the big numbers that you have to start with at the top to get to that final sale at the bottom, right? That's the numbers game they play. And that's the thing. Good salespeople know this, right? Good salespeople know that the funnel works this way. That's kind of explaining the same concept, right? What they know is they have to be out there prospecting, qualifying all the time to start the process, to start pushing people into the funnel to work down towards that one close you need at the bottom. All right, so we're going to get into prospecting now and start talking about that in more detail. But before we do, we'll take a break. So what is it? It's about 20 after? All right, can we plan to start at 11:30? 11:35? All right, 11:35. All right, 11:35 sharp though, all right? I start right then. I'm not going to carry on a little more. Okay, so go do what you got to do. I'm going to step out because I'm going to go grab your assignments and bring them back. I'll have them here. You can grab them during the break, and you can have some time to look at them before we start again. Okay, so we're back. So we've covered our sales process. Now we're moving on to kind of the first step of that sales process, prospecting. And we're going to talk about prospecting and qualifying now before we finish up today. So prospecting. Prospecting is where it all starts, right? I mean, before you can do anything, you have to go out and look for customers. And that's what prospecting is. It's going out and just searching for, and like I said, not being super picky right now, just searching for any potential customers that you could possibly go after, right? That's the first step. So where do you go searching for customers? Well, one of the really great places to consider finding customers that you think might be the right kind is to look at the current customers you have. All right, see what customers currently exist. And then look for customers who are similar to them. So maybe you do business with a certain industry. Like let's say you have an event for some business in the finance industry, right? Some company from Bay Street in Toronto, which is like Wall Street for Toronto, right? Some company from Bay Street comes up and you do an amazing event for them here at your hotel in Barrie, and it incorporates all the activities, and they love it and they have a great time. Okay, so now you know that this is an industry that you can really serve. So when I go looking for, okay, where should I look for customers? Why don't I look for more businesses that are similar and in the similar industry, in the same kind of area, location even? So great thing to start with is who do we currently serve? Who can we go after, right? Now, places we'll look for these kind of customers, other places we can go and find sources. Well, again, referrals. Referrals from customers that you currently have is a good one. So ideally, I mean, you might say to someone that, books with you and they have a great stay, you can always say to them, look, is there anyone else that do you know anyone who you think might also enjoy staying at our hotel, right? And they might recommend some. And again, recommending some people similar to them, right? And that can even be taken a step further. I mean, ideally, it's not just that they tell you who you should go talk to. They'll actually give you a referral, which means they'll make the connection for you. So maybe they write an email to their colleague in another industry, another business, and they say, hey, you know what, we had a great time staying at the Hampton Inn in Barrie, and you know what, this is the salesperson I talked to. They're totally helpful. You should check them out, right? And they link you by that email. And now you have a referral. So while you're still cold calling because you're still going to someone who doesn't really know you, at least you have something to back you up, right? You have this connection, and that's going to make things start off a little better, right? So going to current and past clients and asking them for referrals and references is a great place to start. Another place to start, especially when in the corporate market, if you sell to a division in a big corporation, there's the opportunity to capture other divisions within that same company. And because you've done a really good service for them, like let's say you host an event for the marketing team from Honda, right? Big Honda here in town. Well, you can go back to Honda and maybe call up the sales team and say, hey, you know what? We had an amazing marketing event. We loved working with your company. Would you be interested in doing a sales event with us? And they can then go check with their marketing team and, again, get that reference. Oh, yeah, it was really good. You should use them. And you're already familiar with their business and what they do, so you can be really knowledgeable about helping this customer. So in the corporate market, looking to other divisions within the same company is definitely a great place to look. Talking to local organizations and companies and contacts they have locally can be a place to start. Let's say you maybe have a really good connection with your local bank, right? CIBC, let's say. You have a connection with CIBC, you do your banking with them, all of that, you deal with them on a regular basis. Why not ask them and say, hey, is there anything coming up in CIBC as a whole that maybe we could host here in town, we could do here in Barrie, right? And driving some business from that. Your own hotel employees and all your frontline staff, they are a potential source of business as well. I always tried to remember, both, servers in the restaurants and people working on the front desk, agents on the front desk. I used to always remind them that they're, part of this bigger thing, and driving sales helps all of us, right? So if we have a guest that comes with their corporation, right, on a corporate retreat to our property. This is when I was in Jasper. I'd say, you know what? They may be here on a corporate retreat, but if they really enjoy it, they're going to think, I should come back here with my family. And they become a vacation traveler, right? But the same thing works the other way. We'd get vacation travelers who, Jasper Park Lodge is a nice place for a vacation. So a lot of our vacation travelers actually hold significant positions in large corporations, right? And could be the kind of person that would book a corporate event. So a good front desk staff especially, front desk staff often gets information about companies that the people belong to through their frequent stay programs, right? Through your frequent customer programs, presidential membership, whatever they have, often links back and tells you what their job is, right? And if you identify that you have a senior vice president from Royal Bank staying in your property, that's good information to pass on to your sales team, right? Because the sales team may try to make a connection with that customer. Maybe just a phone call. Hey, it's great to have you on site. I'm glad you're here on vacation with your family. We'd love to maybe, if you wanted, take you on a tour of the property. We'll treat your family to dinner, and we'll take you on a whole tour of the property with the intent of showing them, look, we can host a really good corporate event here, right? And now you've created an inside sale, which is a great one, right? Because they know the property, they've experienced it, and that's ideal from a demonstration standpoint, okay? So your hotel employees, your front desk staff especially, can be great at identifying potential corporate customers. Competitor properties. Like I said before, capturing market share by picking up customers, is a part of what salespeople do. It's not unheard of that a hotel salesperson in their street clothes goes down to another hotel that's a competitor, walks around now and then, and how like the signboard says, this event, that event. Write down the names of the companies that are staying there. You know, if it says Honda Canada marketing meeting, I'm going to call up Honda next week and say, yeah, I'm calling from the Hampton Inn. I saw that you guys were in the Holiday Inn for a marketing event last week. How'd that go for you? Now they might say, oh, it was great. We had an amazing event. Okay, well, you know, we'd love if you'd consider us next time. But ideally, what they're going to say is, you know what? It actually wasn't so great. We didn't really love the food. They didn't really do a good job. Oh, well, I'm really sorry to hear that. Let's talk about how maybe we can help you out next time, right? These are potential customers to get. So understanding your competitor properties and who they serve, their customers, is a good thing to know. Funny story along those lines. My father-in-law, he owns a water company, a water delivery company, so like bottled water, right? The big bottles and the coolers, but also does salt delivery. That's where he got started. He was doing delivery of salt for water softeners. You understand that? Water softeners use salt to replenish themselves. So it started because all his neighbors and him all had to have water softeners, and they had to buy salt from this one big company, right? And he looked and said, we pay so much for salt. There's got to be a cheaper way of doing this. And he realized that if he ordered salt by the skid, he could get like it for half the price. So he ordered a skid of salt, and then his neighbors would all just get the salt from him. And then other people started calling him because it was way cheaper. So he started putting a little bit of a markup on it, but still a lot less than what the big guy was charging. And this ended up becoming a business. Now, when he really decided, he was like, okay, I'm going to make it a business. I'm going to grow it. You know what he did? He went out in his car, and whenever he saw like the competitor, the big company's truck driving around doing his deliveries, he'd follow the truck with a little notepad. And every time it stopped to do a delivery, he wrote down the address. And the next day, he'd go back to the houses that they delivered to and say, hey, I understand you get your salt from this company right now. Did you know I can sell you that salt for a 40% discount? New customer, right? Stealing market share, right? So, all's fair, right? It's business. You know, you're growing your business. If you can offer a better offering, you know, no reason why you can't capture some of your competitors' customers. Personal networking. So, you know, making connections with other people, right? Networking with others. This is something that definitely you can do. How many people here have LinkedIn accounts? All right. The rest of you should go get one. All right? Create a LinkedIn account. Put your resume on there, okay? Talk about who you are, what you're interested in. Make sure it has a photo. Personally, I don't link in with anyone that doesn't have a photo because I don't know for sure who it is, right? So I want to know. And then start linking in with people, everybody. First of all, link in with all your classmates, right? Because you don't know where these classmates are going to be in the future. I mean, you're all just students right now, but 10 years from now, right, he might be the director of sales, right? You don't know that. Possibly, well, maybe we do, I don't know. Anyways, so yeah, you know, we don't know where these people are going to end up. So we start connecting with all your classmates now. In 10, 15 years, these could be valuable connections that you could use, right? So do that for each other, right? LinkedIn's a great, kind of a fundamental tool in business now as far as networking goes. My LinkedIn account has over 500 people on it. It ranges from past students to people I've worked with in industry going years back, right? And a lot of these people now, you can go through it, hold some pretty cool positions, right? I have a guy that was a basic junior, you know, assistant manager at Fairmont, right, at Jasper, who now in Halifax owns his own bar and hotel, right? Because 15 years has passed. And he worked his way up through the ranks at Fairmont and then went and did his own thing, right? That's how connections evolve. So get a LinkedIn account, start building it, because personal networking is a big part of what you do. Intermediaries. So, of course, tour operators, meeting planners, and convention visitors bureau, obviously, their whole role is getting business, right? So connecting with them and finding clients through them is a big one. Association directories are great. If, let's say, you know that, you know what, you hosted some high-tech company, and they had a great event with you, and they really like you. Okay, so I want to capture more people in the high-tech industry, right? Find out what association they belong to. Go to the association, Look at their membership list. That's a bunch of companies that fall into the right category, right? So members list for associations, great one to look at. If you know that some industry is blowing up and they're doing really well and it's a successful, just the industry as a whole, go shopping for their industry members because there's a lot of successful companies there, right? Good things to look at. And then, of course, when it comes down to it, cold calling and advertisements. Advertisements, now if you remember, we talked about integrated marketing. We talked about the importance in advertising in helping with cold calling. The idea that an advertisement, while it might not generate a response, creates recognition so that when you do contact someone who doesn't know you, they know your ad. And that gives you credibility, right? So creating credibility through advertisements. So cold calling, right? Finding prospects. Going out cold calling, definitely a place to start, right? It's hard. It's a tough part of the job. It's probably one of the things that a lot of salespeople don't really love, but it's key. It's important. You have to do cold calling to create presentations, right? So it's definitely something to always work on. It's why I've done so much of the elevator sales pitch thing, just to get you used to just talking to people, and we're doing that, being in that role, right? Breaking down your barriers with this. Orphan customers. So customers that maybe bought from a company that went bankrupt or disappeared or moved, or customers who maybe, let's say they always dealt with a certain salesperson at a hotel. What if that salesperson leaves? Right? Now those customers, well, they know the hotel. Maybe it was more about their relationship with the salesperson. And now that's a possible customer for you to grab, right? So looking for those opportunities. Sales clubs or networking with other salespeople. If someone's a competitive salesperson to you, they're not going to give you leads, right? But a lot of the time, there's salespeople that don't directly compete with you, but they have the same types of customers. So, like, if there's a convention center and you're a hotel, the convention center is trying to sell them. So you get hotel customers, you recommend them to the convention center salesperson. The convention center salesperson recommends their customers to you as the hotel, right? You have that connection back and forth. So looking for non-competing salespeople who work with similar types of customers. Now, if you're in a corporate hotel chain, if you're in a chain, like a hotel chain, you have multiple properties, this is another opportunity for this. Now, in the corporate market, like we said before, corporate customers tend to use the same property again and again. So you might want to keep that one in your back pocket, right? But an association, you know they're booking with you, but you know next year they're going to go somewhere else, and the year after that somewhere else. They may come back around to you in 5 years, but you know for a while they're not coming back to you. So let's say I'm booking the Royal York in Toronto, right? I have a customer, I got a customer, we're putting on a great event for them. I know they're not coming back to see me for a while. Why wouldn't I relate them on to the salesperson at the Palliser, which is the Fairmont in Calgary, right? Or the Chateau Laurier, or the Chateau Frontenac, one of the other properties, and give those salesmen in the same company as me an opportunity to try and capture them for a different year, for a different event at another time. So networking among salespeople is definitely something that happens and you want to encourage. Being an expert is an interesting way of making contacts with people. Again, it goes to like credibility. Creating credibility is a good thing. Where can you be an expert? Well, you do that by giving expert advice. Maybe even doing things like writing articles. LinkedIn is a great place for this. You can write an article or an opinion piece or give advice and post it on LinkedIn. And if it's interesting enough, people share it and they talk about it and it moves around. And pretty soon people are responding to you, right, as an expert. And now when you deal with them as a salesperson, they aren't seeing you so much as a salesperson as someone who is helping them and giving them advice, right? So definitely something you can build on.
What are some things that you think would be like good posts for LinkedIn?
Oh, it really depends on you and your area of expertise.
Because also I wouldn't put the same stuff I put on Facebook on LinkedIn.
Oh, no, absolutely no. LinkedIn is a non-social thing. It is business only. Yeah. Don't even link with your Facebook friends on LinkedIn.
Okay.
You should only link on LinkedIn with people that are in the industry, that are related to you, right? This isn't a place to chat with buddies, right?
I know that.
And honestly, even your social network anymore, your like Facebook page, yeah, you got to be really careful what goes on there too, all right? Honestly, when it comes to social networks, There are people that if they're interviewing you for a job will go search for all your social stuff that's out there. You always got to remember that. You know what? I'm actually not big on that. I don't believe that. I think, people's work life and their personal life are two separate things. So I've known people, and maybe it's, from working in restaurants, I know people that are amazing employees in my restaurant. I know in their social life they are a complete disaster. But it doesn't relate back to the fact that they're a great employee and that should be respected. So I don't want to know what's on their Facebook page, right? But there's people that do, and you always got to start watching that at this point. Yeah, no, LinkedIn is different. LinkedIn, if you see an interesting article about a trend in the hotel industry, click on it, link it into your thing. Oh, that's neat, and stick it in your stream, things like that. Yes, I would be careful what opinion you'd post, though. If your opinion would in any way offend someone, I wouldn't put it on LinkedIn, right? I'd be careful what you put there. It's really about building connections, and for a lot of people, it's about getting jobs, right? Like even if you tell me, hey, I'm not working in hotel sales, a lot of what I'm telling you helps you get jobs too, right? Because getting a job is a sales pitch. All right, so moving forward. Public exhibitions and trade shows are great opportunities for salespeople. They have this unique aspect to them, right? Now, think back. You remember the MPI video I showed you, right? And it was the trade show for meeting planners, and all the hotel people were there selling. Those trade shows are great because that process that we have, right? That takes time. Going through, approach, presentation, walking through all the steps can take time and travel and visits. But if you're at a trade show, you can go through that whole process right there in one day, right? There's customers walking around that you've never met. So there's your prospecting's done because they're there, right? You're talking to them, you're quickly qualifying them, and if they're interested, you're quickly, you're throwing in your elevator sales pitch. And they go, wow, that's really great. Excellent. Let's set up a meeting this afternoon. Boom. You have them come back. You do the presentation for them. You end up negotiating the deal and closing it all in one day at a trade show. Trade shows compact the sales process because everyone that needs to be there is there. And you have your presentation materials and your videos and everything you could possibly use, right? You have it all ready to go. So trade shows are especially great for that reason. And then center of influence, right? Cultivating your kind of reference group. Again, this is about making good personal connections, right? And having people know who you are and refer to you, right? And again, great place to kind of find more prospects. Direct mail is kind of an old school concept, sending out mailings. Success rates aren't super high, but you know what? It's not super expensive, and it can be the right thing in certain situations. But really now the modern version of this emailing, right? Emailing is what we tend to do instead of direct mail. Again, you heard him say though, email doesn't have huge response rates, but it's cheap and it's simple and it's easy to do, right? So email or direct mail definitely can be done. And hey, if, you never know. It might be what, starts off a great and finds the right person. Remember, prospecting isn't always about finding the right one every time. It's just about numbers, right? Volume. So in that sense, emailing creates volume, and that's a good thing. Telemarketing, again, similar. This is kind of really jumping right to the cold call kind of part of it, the approach, and that's what telemarketing does. But it can be tricky, right? In industry and corporations, telemarketing very quickly usually gets turned off. You're rarely calling and connecting directly with the person that can make the decision, so it doesn't tend to kind of work so much in the corporate market. And then, of course, social media. So we talked about LinkedIn, but yeah, also connections you make through social media, other personal connections as well. But then also watching for trends in social media, right? So on LinkedIn, on Facebook, watching and seeing what's trending, what's going on, what's kind of happening. Part of having a LinkedIn account is seeing what people are talking about, seeing what people who you know and work with and share common experience with, seeing what they're talking about, what's important, and really just keeps you up to date on the industry and what's going on. So this is all just about prospecting, right? Finding numbers, pure numbers. The last thing to do, though, now is once we find those numbers, we need to determine, well, of all those people, who are going to be the best chance of success, right? Where should we focus our time when it comes to approaching customers? So qualifying. Now, underlying this concept of qualifying is this thing called the 80-20 rule, right? And the 80-20 rule basically says that 80% of your business in sales comes from 20% of your accounts, 20% of your customers, right? The idea is really there's some core customers that are really doing the bulk of the purchasing in any set of accounts you have. And this concept really holds true throughout business. It's a concept sometimes called the Pareto principle. It came from an economist, Vilfredo Pareto. Specifies, so the idea, he really kind of talked about this unequal relationship between input and output. In other words, focusing on what really, makes things happen can be more efficient. So identifying what that 20% is that really moves the needle, right, is how you find success. So 20% of invested input is responsible for 80% of the results obtained. Now this applies, that's a general statement. It applies to a lot of different things in business, right? So 20% of customers represents 80% of your sales, or 20% of your time produces 80% of your results. How many of you sit down to do about 4 hours of work for school? And in all reality, when you look at it after, you're like, there was 1 hour where I really got stuff done. And the rest was kind of whatever, right? This rule applies throughout life, right? The idea that if you can identify that core thing, that core time, that core input, the core customers that really drive results, that's where you can find efficiencies and success. There's actually a book that expands on this. It's called The 4-Hour Workweek. And the principle of the book is people that work for companies do a 40-hour week. If you take someone that just works for themselves or works on their own time, they'll accomplish everything that a 40-hour work week person does in 4 hours. Basically because they isolated down to that core work that you need to do to really produce results, right? But that applies now in sales. When you come to qualifying, you want to take this 80-20 rule and use it to really identify, well, which are the customers that are really going to generate that high level of results from a small number of customers. So what are you looking for? How do you qualify someone? Well, they have to meet certain requirements, right? And the the term we use is they're mad. A mad customer is a good customer. Because what MAD stands for is money, authority, and desire. Do they have the money to purchase what it is I'm selling? Great place to start, right? It's all about selling. You need money. So is the money there? But a big one, and really applying to what we're talking about in hotel sales, authority. When it comes to qualifying, you're trying to figure out how to be efficient with your time. Do you really want to spend 2 days talking to someone only to have them at the end say, this sounds great, but I have to go run it by my boss? I mean, one of two things is going to happen. Either, right, the boss is going to say, oh, I don't know why you wasted the time with that. We already have something picked. Don't worry about it. And it's all wasted. Or the boss is going to say, okay, well, I'll talk to him. And now you got to start the whole process over again, right? So isn't it better to get to the person of authority as quickly as possible, right? And that's an important thing. And as a salesperson, part of your job is to figure out who am I going to talk to? Who is the authority? That's actually going to be a part of the assignment we're going to do today. And then the last part, of course, is desire, right? Trying to sell to someone who doesn't really want what you're selling is going to be obviously a bigger challenge. It's like rolling a rock uphill. It's much easier to go downhill, right? It's much easier to sell to someone who actually needs or wants what it is you're selling. You might be able to sell to someone who isn't looking for what you're selling, but it's a lot more work. So when it comes to qualifying and being efficient with time, desire certainly matters. So how do we qualify a prospect? How do we figure all this out about them? First of all, just ask them questions, right? Asking them questions. Do you ever do a survey? You do a survey and they ask you, what's your household income? That's a qualifying question right off, right? What's your average household income? Question you never really want to answer. So asking them directly for that kind of information. But you know, what can you ask? Well, what is the overall sales for your business, right? Or how many members does your association have? Good question, right? All these kind of things help give you an indication of money, right? And whether they have that kind of funds. Researching the company's prospectus or the association's documents, right? They publish, a lot of companies, especially public ones that trade on the stock exchange, they have to put out information about themselves. Checking out their website, though, for any business, looking on their website, getting a sense of who they are, maybe going checking out their location, right? Their retail, their real estate, what they have, right? Any kind of information you can find out there that's public definitely can help. Being knowledgeable about an industry. If you want to sell to the financial industry in Toronto, don't just know the company you sell for. Know the industry as a whole. Know who the biggest companies are. Know who the biggest competitors are, right? Know which companies are cutting edge and leading the charge, right? It's knowing the ones who focus more on the discount side of an industry, right? All of this is important. It helps you understand where you're going to, you know, which customers you want to capture. Speaking with non-competing salespeople, I talked about that already. We talked about it as far as finding customers, but it also doesn't hurt when it comes to qualifying a customer. You know, so you could say, yeah, I know I'm talking to this company. Well, a salesperson who talked to him from your company from another location might be like, you know what, I spent 4 weeks talking to them, and in the end, I found out they didn't have the budget anyways, right? Save you a lot of time. So talking to non-competing salespeople can help you kind of qualify if someone's worth dealing with. And then, of course, financial status. If you can determine financially how they're doing, right, through their credit ratings is something you can do, annual reports, just kind of, you know, trying to figure out how their financial kind of situation is certainly helps. So that brings us to our in-class exercise. So this is the exercise we're going to do. You are a hotel in downtown Barrie. The Make Believe Hotel. All right, we're just making it up. Your hotel has a banquet room that can host either 300 people for a sit-down dinner or 500 people for a cocktail reception. Okay? So that's your range. And you have rooms to support those numbers. Your job now is to pick a company. You get to make one sales call, right? Now, I'm going to give you a list of the top companies in Barrie, the top companies and organizations in Barrie. You're going to take this list. You have to go through it. And number one, you have to figure out who is the first company I would call. What company or organization do I think would be my best prospect? Now, what you're inviting them to is you're trying to sell them their holiday celebration, right? We're going into the holiday season. You're selling them their holiday celebration for their staff. And even though they're a Barrie, kind of in the Barrie area, they're going to want to use hotel rooms because, you know, people will be drinking, they want to have a fun party. So it's kind of a whole package deal, all right? So you want to host this big holiday party. You have to pick the best company. You have to explain to me why they're the right choice. And then you have to identify the actual employee that you would try and contact first in order to make this sale. Their name and their title, what their position is. Okay? Yep.
Is there a list of employees too?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
Nope, just businesses.
Or are we supposed to look up that information?
See if you can find it. What do you think salespeople do? Right? Salespeople do research. So, can you figure out who the best person to talk to is, right, if you're going to try and make this sale? Okay? So, I'm going to hand out a list of companies now.